Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching me play Last Epoch. Kind of, not really play Last Epoch per se, I'm just in the build planner. So, Season 3 of Last Epoch is coming out in a couple of days, and I think it comes out on the 21st, so a couple of days away. And I have about a week to play it before we get into Path of Exile 2. It's going to be interesting, I have like a week to play. The plan is to get a build up and running, kill Aberoth, and then be done. Also, as an added small note before we get started, this is definitely not a build guide. I'm not good enough at Last Epoch to be able to make a build guide in the planner without actually playing it in-game. I have to play it in-game and make switches and change things around. I'm not good enough at reading the planner to actually tell you whether this is a good build or not, so don't take it as a build guide. It's just kind of my plans on what I'm going to do going forward. Anyway, let's continue. We'll see how it goes. My plan is to play the new Lich. They're reworking the Lich entirely in this update, and I want to use the new ability Flay. So I've thrown together a kind of cool-ish build, I think, using some of the new stuff. I'm very bad at judging how good a build is when I build it in the build planner. I kind of have to play it, but as of now, this seems pretty good. So I'll go over the passives, followed by the skills, then I'll go over my gear. So the passives, there's a few interesting things here. Starting off as Acolyte, we want to grab kind of generic stuff. Intelligence and ward retention is all pretty good. And these ones at the top all give you extra damage. They're all fine. Nothing particularly spectacular in here. Moving on to Lich. Lich gets some particularly interesting things here. Notably, it has a node now that allows you to dual wield. The amount of damage you can get from dual wielding is pretty big in Last Epoch. So that's great. We also have this here. This is probably the most interesting things they're adding. So this gives more health and an endurance threshold, whatever. I don't care about that so much. The main thing here is after you put 2 points in here, health and ward cannot exceed max health percentage of 50%, and I always count as being on low life. So, a couple of things about that. I have about 4,048 health, so about 2,000 health is going to be my limit for health, and then there's going to be like 2,000 ward on top of that. At 2,000 ward, I'm constantly regenning like over 100 ward per second. Like I think it's like nearly 200 ward per second at that point. So essentially I will never drain ward. This is particularly interesting because we also go on to the next one here, where we have all damage over time taken bypasses ward. So whenever I take damage over time procs, they're going to be going directly to my health, and I'm going to be doing a lot of leeching. So I should constantly be leeching health, so any damage over time doesn't matter, and it's not taking my ward, which means my ward's allowed to sit there for a big single hit. The only thing I'm questioning right now in what I've done so far is whether or not I have enough health. I may need to take some stuff out to put more health in, because if I have more health, it'll give me more ward, which will give me more one-shot protection. I don't know if I have it high enough currently. We'll see when we get into game later. But that's a really cool interaction they've added now, where we essentially, my leech ends at 66% health. I'm never at 66% health. I cap out at 50, so I never reach 66% health. What I take this to mean is that it works kind of like Slayer works in Path of Exile 1. So I'll just always have leech, because it'll never reach the threshold it needs to stop leeching. So even if I'm at full, quote-unquote, full health, which will be 50%, I should still be leeching. I think is what that means. It remains to be seen, it may just cut off at 50 now, in which case this is nowhere near as good as I'm thinking it is. If this just gives me essentially perma-leech, then that's a big survivability node. That's like really good for survivability. So let's hope that's how it actually works. Finally, we have a couple of things in, what do I put in Necromancer? Nothing particularly interesting in Necromancer, we just have, when I use a potion, and it also consumes my lowest health minion, I am actually summoning minions pretty constantly. Technically, I am getting the super potions with this. And moving on to Warlock, we have some interesting things here. Notably, this here. When you cast a physical spell and enemies within 15 meters have a combined 25 or more stacks of bleed, we should have well and truly over that with the way I've built this, because we have a lot of bleed chance. You'll cast Rip Blood up to 5 nearby enemies and gain Blood Overload. And then here, while you have Blood Overload, you cast Rip Blood at nearby enemies every second. So it just should be shooting out Rip Bloods everywhere. That's all the main parts of the tree. There's nothing particularly else interesting in there. Everything else in there is just kind of defensive and or offensive layers, like ward retention, stuff like that, more intelligence, to give me more ward retention, all that kind of thing. The skills we're working with is Flay, Rip Blood, Marrow Shards, Chaos Bolts, and Aura of Decay. Now, Rip Blood, Marrow Shards, and Chaos Bolts are pretty much never going to be cast by me. All of these are going to be auto-cast by each other. So, under Flay, when we get a critical strike, we have a 100% chance to cast Marrow Shards. My critical strike multiplier is about 50%, so essentially every second enemy I hit with Flay has a chance of casting Marrow Shards. That's cool. That's auto casting. I love auto casting. We also have here is Chaos Rip. So Chaos Bolt chance per 1 maximum mana. I have 200 mana, therefore I have 200% chance to fire out a Chaos Bolt. I should be firing 2 Chaos Bolts every time I hit something with Rip Blood, with Flay rather. So that's Chaos Bolts and Rip Blood, Chaos Bolts and Marrow Shards both being cast by my main ability. So I should just be able to zip around hitting things with Flay and trigger both of those. And then we go to Chaos Bolts, and my Chaos Bolts is triggering Rip Blood at like a 60% chance, so we should be doing Rip Bloods all the time as well, just for my Chaos Bolts hitting things. It just seems cool to me. Also, I've made all of these things physical, so they do a bunch of bleed. Physical and bleed is just better because it's easier to scale. Rip Blood is giving me a bunch of healing. Rip Blood and Marrow Shards are both giving me a bunch of healing. Probably more than I need, in all honesty, because Rip Blood will give you blood orbs. So when you kill something with Rip Blood, it'll rip like a little orb of blood that heals you. It also gives me mana because I am stacked into giving it mana as well. So I should be getting mana back and health back whenever I get blood orbs from Rip Blood, and Rip Blood should be constantly casting all the time. So I should have a lot of sustain there. Also, the coagulated blood, it just makes blood orbs give you like these big stacks, which allow you to do big blood explosions and do some more damage. So it gives some damage to the blood orbs essentially. And moving on, we have Marrow Shards as well. So Marrow Shards has a chance to create a Marrow Orb on hit that returns 15 health to you. I've buffed the health a bit more, so it's like, 36 health instead. And we've got more chance, so it's about 40% chance every time I cast Marrow Shard, or what's it called? Yeah, Marrow Shard, that we get some orbs. And it also gives me a 33% chance to give me mana as well. So again, that's some more mana and health regen. It might be overkill, to be honest. I don't know if it's like, it might just be massive overkill with the amount of health we're getting, but we'll see. Anything else of interest here? Nothing particularly. And then finally, we're also going to be rocking Aura of Decay. That does a couple of things. One, that'll heal us when we have it open. We've also converted it to physical, which means it's doing bleed stacks rather than poison stacks. It's also shredding armor per second, slowing per second, and chilling per second. We should just be getting a bunch of effects that are all really good. Chill is really cool, slow is really cool, shred armor is really cool, and then we're doing physical damage and bleed as well, so even more bleed stacks to go around. As you can see, we're stacking pretty heavily into bleed. Now, as for the gear, there's a bunch of stuff here that's generically good. Like this here, Euron's Wisdom, it's very easy to get legendary potential on this. So the idea, I can get this with 3 legendary potential pretty easily, to be honest. Now, clearly, I've built this out as I plan for endgame, because getting 3 T7s is hard. Even if you get the LP on the body armor, it's hard to get 3 T7s. But the basic idea is there. But as you can see here, it gives me a bunch more health. Health is really good on this build. It also gives me melee damage leeches health when below 65% health. I'm always below 65% health, so I just always have 3% extra melee damage leech, which is really cool. So there's a bunch of generically good stuff like that. Same with here. Ward per second per 3% uncapped necrotic resistance. Ward per second is really good. Also gives Dex Intelligence, that's also really good. This here is interesting. This is one of the new weapons. This is a Primordial Unique. So the way that these work is it's due to the new kind of quote-unquote League mechanic, is that there's these primal enemies that you can fight. When you beat them, you got to beat them a couple of times. Every time you beat them, they evolve. And when you beat the final one, they have a chance of dropping a primal item. So either these comes in the form of uniques, but the exalted items, you can take a T7 affix and turn it into a T8 affix. So that's what that does. That's interesting, but you're only allowed to have 1 primordial item on you at a time, and this unique seemed really cool, so I wanted this one instead. So this gives +1 physical skills and +1 fire skills. Every single one of my skills is physical, so that's +1 to all my abilities. +1 fire skills, that gives me an extra on Chaos Bolt as well, which is nice, I suppose. But the big one here, if you have an exalted weapon in your offhand, its stats have 100% increased effectiveness. That seems really, really good. Also gets 13 all attributes, which is nice as well. Attribute stacking is quite nice. But just doubling this is essentially giving me 3 weapons, right? Because you have this, you have your offhand, and then all of the stats on your offhand are doubled. So theoretically you have 3 weapons? It seems very good, is all I'm saying. I don't know, man. That just seems very, very good. Like power creep crazy kind of good. Anything else of particular interest on here? Nothing really. I'm using Ring of the Third Eye just because it's very easy to get LP on Ring of the Third Eye. And I want a bunch of critical chance. I don't care so much about the critical multiplier because the main reason I want the critical chance is so that we can get Marrow Shards cast when I do Flay. That's the main reason we want it. So I just want the actual crit to proc. I don't actually care about the additional damage all that much. So if you look at my offense, I think my crit, yeah, we only have 190% multiplier on the crit. But we have like a 52% chance base, plus Flay takes that a bit higher because we have additional base crit on Flay, so it's actually quite a bit higher. We're probably sitting at about 70% chance on Flay. So that's interesting as well. All right, the only final thing we have to do with my gear is these boots. These boots are really cool. They're called the Army of Skin, which is disgusting, but they're essentially boots fully built around the Flay skill. So, 1, when Flay kills an enemy or hits a boss or rare enemy, you gain a stack of Excoriation and have a 6% chance to cast Summon Skeletons if not at maximum skeletons. Excoriation has a maximum of 13 stacks, and all stacks expire if you have not gained a new one for 13 seconds. Each stack of Excoriation grants Flay and Harvest 13% increased area of effect, and 6% melee damage, or plus 6 melee damage, flat damage in fact. Each stack of Excoriation grants an 8% chance on Flay hit to cast Rip Blood, up to 3 times per 2 seconds. So, at max stacks, that gives us over 100% chance to cast Rip Blood every time we hit something with Flay. As I said, all of my abilities are all casting into each other. It's really cool. There's something so fun about the way Last Epoch allows me to make a one-button build that actually just fully like I can build like 5 abilities, but I still make a one-button build because I just trigger everything off everything. It's fantastic. I love it. Anyway, that's about it. I haven't done any of my blessings, so theoretically there is more power that I could do in here, but I'm not going to worry about them on the planner. I'll just do them later. But that's it. Again, I have no idea how good this build is actually going to end up being. Like, if you look at my defensive layer, I feel like my one-shot is nowhere near high enough. I also don't think that the game is technically taking into account how my stats are being configured, because it's not like halving my health and adding the ward and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't do ward calculations. I had to do all that separately. So maybe this is inaccurate, but this doesn't seem high enough. At least not for like Uber Aberoth, definitely. It might be enough for Aberoth, as long as you dodge shit well enough. I don't know. The point is, I'm not sure how good this build is in the planner. I have to actually take it in game to try it in game to see how good it would be. And I can't yet, because none of this stuff, like this is all Lich rework stuff that isn't in the game until like the update goes live. So we'll find out then, I suppose. Anyway, if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.